Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. And the subject and the topic of this 10-minute moan is a bit bizarre because the SNP have dropped independence. Now, I know that might be sort of difficult to believe, but it is in fact true, and it's been brought to our attention on the Alba website. Right now, the origins of this story go back to March when the SNP applied to the Electoral Commission to change their logo, right? Now, let me just find this story. And you know, when you get into the polling booth and on the ballot paper, you have each logo for the parties. You know, the rose thing for the Scottish Labour Party and things like that. Well, the SNP wanted to change theirs. So they have their logo, their normal logo. Underneath it, they had two versions registered in March of this year. And each of them had the word independence on it. One of them just said SNP independence, and the other one said SNP for independence. So there was this new branding specifically designed for the next election, so that when you get into the polling booth, you would see a slightly different version of the SNP logo on your ballot paper. Hamza Yousaf that done it. He was the First Minister at the time. It was not long before he got hunted. Now, I never thought much of it at the time, but there was people being a bit critical about it at the time, and it was in some newspapers round about, and I'll get the date here. Start of March, 5th of March, okay? So, 3 months ago. And I was expecting to see that in the ballot papers. Now, Alba's website has got an article posted yesterday, it was late last night, claiming Salmon Sen, the SNP hoist the white flag in independence. The SNP have chosen to drop the use of the word independence at the general election. The decision has been confirmed today after notice of polls have been published across Scotland. I guess that's where we get notified what the things are going to look like, right? At their annual conference last year, SNP members agreed the SNP should seek to add the words independence for Scotland, or words to that effect, to the ballot paper at the general election to make it clear beyond doubt what's at stake at this election. That was their words. However, it has been revealed today across Scotland that the SNP leadership have moved against the wishes of their own party members and opted to drop mention of independence from the party's description on the ballot paper. Former First Minister and Alba Party leader Alex Salmond says the move is the latest in a trend of SNP distancing itself from independence, which is the reason the independence movement is distancing itself from the SNP. Salmond's Alba Party will be fielding 19 candidates at the general election, and they will put independence on the ballot paper, with Alba candidates being listed as Alba Party Yes to Independence on each ballot paper. Alba Party's deputy leader, Kenny McCaskill, will also fight the newly established Alloa and Grangemouth constituency, seeking to save Scotland's only refinery from closure. Commenting on former First Minister and Alba Party leader Alex Salmond said the SNP went to great lengths last year to promote that they would be putting independence in the ballot paper, and they had new descriptions approved by the Electoral Commission only a couple of months ago. Their decision to now drop mention of independence is simply the continuation of a pattern that has resulted in many independent supporters becoming completely disillusioned by the SNP. The SNP have hoisted the white flag on independence. That is why Alba Party are mobilising the independence movement to ensure that their votes count for independence at the general election. Unlike the SNP, Alba are putting independence on the ballot paper. Now, this is pretty mental, right? And it's not the biggest, earth-shattering video I've ever done. But when you consider what's actually happened here, so at that party conference, that was the one where Hamza just decided he was going to freeze, council tax, without talking to the councils, right, that one. He's only one, actually, it turns out. It's remarkable, isn't it? The last leader of the SNP only survived one conference. So he and the party decide at their conference, that's where all the members go to vote on party things. So they all decided that's what they wanted. And I think that was September last year. So by March last year, they had designed these two new versions of the logo. The only difference, the word for. One said SNP Independence, the other says SNP for Independence. So no great difference. I can remember at the time thinking, why do you need the option of two? Right? Because it doesn't really matter. If you can't decide what one you're going to use, when are you going to decide? Well, it turns out they decided to use none of them. So that's bizarre on so many levels. And I think the most important level to the SNP members is it's totally against what they agreed on at the conference. And probably the biggest issue for independence movement is the fact that they've just decided to totally go and remove it. I mean, that's not a decision that you would make lightly. That's obviously been discussed, and there will be a genuine reason for it. They've decided, no, we're not going to do it anymore. It'd be interesting for somebody to ask Swinney or anybody, or he'll not know because it's leaders of the party and he's just a puppet. But you know what I mean? Somebody to ask some of these important, so they seem important, people within the party and just ask them straight, why did you drop it? Because there's only two reasons when you think about it, right? One reason is they've decided it's a policy movement that they just, for some bizarre reason, they've made the conscious decision to drop what was agreed at the conference, right? Well, the other thing is, they've just made an arse of it. That they've went to the bother of getting these logos designed, getting them put into electoral commission, and then maybe forgot to tell them what they want to use. And they've just, they've went with whatever was on their default from previous elections. I don't know. But there's only two things are possible. It's either been a conscious decision to do it, or an incompetent decision to no update whatever they had to update. So I'm not sure how it's ended up that way, but either reason for them getting there is proper daft, isn't it? I mean, it's whatever the reasoning behind it, whether it's a mistake or planned, hasn't got a good look on it for them. And I know this is the most earth-shattering video ever done, but I'd love to know what people that want independence think of it. Because remember as well, I was talking early on in the election campaign that they told anybody during the campaigning how we're going to get independence until John Swinney just agreed with what Humza had said about 6 months previous, that it was going to be a de facto referendum, unlike Nicola's version of a de facto referendum that was to be 50% of the votes plus one would be a mandate for independence. Humza changed that slightly when he realised that wasn't going to happen, and he suggested that if the SNP got the majority of seats, Scottish seats in Westminster, which would be 29, then that would give a mandate for a referendum. And I remember at the time thinking, well, you could get to that result with about 30% of the votes. So why would Westminster grant you your wishes when you turning up to Westminster and making demands doesn't mean they're going to get accepted. We've seen that loads of times with SNP. But so what Humza was having you believe was, let's say they won 29 seats. He was going to go to Westminster and say that shows you the democratic wishes of the Scottish people is to have another referendum. But you could get to 29, 30 seats with 30% of the vote. So Westminster would quite obviously say, well, no, because it doesn't prove what it proves is 70%, 60 to 70% of the population have they voted for anything that you say. So how that give you a mandate, I don't know. So Humza's was daft, right? Because it might be easier to achieve than Nicola's version. But then what are you going to do once you do that? Westminster would hunt you, quite rightly so. As John Swinney's now suggested, he'll just go the same as Humza's route, which wouldn't work. Evidently wouldn't work, right? And now they're dropping the word independence from a logo that they would have spent time and money organising after that's what they discussed at their party conference, to totally ignore it. It's just crazy. I genuinely, I don't know why they've done it, but I cannot see a single positive spin on this for the party, and it's quite a small thing. It's just words on a ballot paper, but the importance of the reason, the route it took to get there with the, agreeing at conference, etc., to now just go, nah, we're not using that. And, thanks Alba for pointing that out, because we wouldn't have noticed it until voting day. And I think if I was a nationalist wanting independence, I'd be quite curious to understand why. And I'm not a nationalist that wants independence, and I'm curious to know why, but it doesn't matter to me. I'll not be voting for them anyway. But I think it would be important discussion for nationalists to have that want independence. So there we go. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you've not already done so, please consider subscribing and get involved in the comments. You always get some good chat in there. And as long as you know the SNP or any of their own, which is, to be fair, decreasing numbers every day of their cult, have a great day. Cheery bye now.